Welcome to the Thyroid Life podcast with me, Dr. Rebecca Warren. I created this podcast because I wanted to empower, educate, and equip women to not only just truly understand thyroid hormones, but understand their bodies and how to get themselves well. This is such a unique podcast because not only am I a doctor that's worked with women all over the world on reclaiming their health, but I've walked that same path as well. If you want more information about what it looks like to work with me, get my free Optimal Lab ebook, get plugged into my amazing Thyroid Inner Circle community, as well as join my newsletter, go to my website, drrebeccawarren.com. So a common frustration and kind of like troubleshooting question I get asked by a lot of women that are doing low carb or keto, I've had this happen so many times throughout the years, is this frustration or feeling of like failure around finding themselves binging or finding themselves really randomly eating tons of carbs. I had a woman ask me, I was doing a forum on, low carb, ketosis, fasting, and hormones. And she was like, she'd lost all this weight with keto and all the whatever, all this stuff, right? All the good things that come with becoming like metabolically flexible and becoming fat adapted. But she was like, I just get, she was talking down to herself. Like, I just get really frustrated because, usually it's around my ovulation. Like, I find myself eating ice cream and like cookies and like all this sweet stuff. And like, I don't know. And like, how can I stop that? Or, like what can I do to like stop that from happening essentially? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, no. You don't stop that from happening. You have to plan for that. And I'll explain that, like what this all means. Another scenario, someone asked me recently, someone within my community, and it was along the fact of, I don't feel hungry all the time. Like I feel good with my nutrients, but there's like for 2 days, I might just overeat on my snacks and like just eat a lot more than what I usually do. And I feel like I just, more anxious about it. And then afterwards, I feel fantastic. So what does this mean? What does this all mean? Guys, women, you have to refeed. You've got to refeed. Now, this can be a really scary thing for a lot of you guys that are, fasting or have done keto and you've lost all this weight. And, I've talked about this before about how I like to be very cautious in saying things like, like food is medicine. Like if you've heard me talk about this before, I don't like that saying because the food in and of itself isn't what's healing you. It's giving you nutrients. It's giving you energy. It's giving these things your body needs, but it's your body essentially that's healing you, right? It's your body's innate intelligence that can take those nutrients in and do what needs to be done. Like, I don't see food at all as, good or bad, first of all. I had a cheat meal. This was a bad meal. You say that to me in a coaching session, I call it right out immediately. Like, listen, you ate a donut. Okay, that's fine. It's not as nourishing, but we can move on from that, right? It's not this cheat meal like if you did something naughty, right? Like you have the opportunity to give your body something that will move it in one direction or give it something else that will move it in a different direction, right? Food can be either something complementary for your body or it can be a stressor. That's the best way to look at it, right? Food should not be a stressful thing. It should not bring all these negative emotions and overwhelm. And it does that because we put all this kind of like, all this, heaviness, all this kind of expectation on food. And food, should be a time where you sit down and you slow down and you slow down. I mean, slow down, like not eating in your car, not eating in front of the TV, sitting with loved ones or friends or sitting by yourself with a book or just sitting and relaxing and eating something nutritious. And that food will give your body what it needs to do what it was created to do. All right. So, your body with the right nutrients will function the way it's created. Okay, that's the food that complements the body. And then there's food that stresses the body, and your body's going to have to deal with the stressors of inflammatory oils and tons of sugar, right? So, first off, right off the bat, you've got to understand that, because you guys think that keto is what's healing your body or changing your metabolism. No, it's your body. And essentially, what's happened is that we've spent decades, right? We've spent, like 5, 6 decades preaching this message that carbs are great and snack a lot. And whether you know it's consciously or subconsciously, like we have this messaging, and this is how we've ate naturally. And so now when we take a moment to increase our fat and our protein, since we're, especially a lot of women that I've worked with, that I've seen, I've worked with thousands throughout the years, because I've done, webinars, I've done all these different things like community groups, challenges on social media. Anyways, the one thing I commonly see is that women historically have undereaten protein and fat. Just we have. And so when you allow your metabolism to become fat adapted, when it's naturally, it should be. We should have a diversity of our macros. We should have a diversity of our nutrients. We should eat what's seasonally in season. That's what I'm trying to say, right? We should eat what's in season, but we get to eat whatever we want, whenever we want. And that's not how it's supposed to be. So when we actively diversify what we're eating, right? When we're actively, making an effort to say, hey, I've been very carb focused. Now I'm going to be fat focused. I'm going to be protein focused. Although protein is not something you should be cutting back on. That's for another day. Protein should be a set amount every time so that you can get those essential amino acids. But when we do that, the body's going to be like, whoa, this is amazing. We're diversifying our nutrients. You're going to see some amazing things. But guys, guess what? Listen, I'm a big meat eater. I love meat, right? But I can go ahead and I can admit to the fact that there's benefits in going into short-term, more, like vegetarian, or maybe even like short-term, increasing those carbs, lowering that fat, lowering that protein just a little bit, but maintaining your levels and getting it from a vegetarian source. Like there's benefits going full carnivore. There's benefits for that because it's diversifying macros. Like your body's like, boom, this is a new change. Your gut microbiome, your cells, everything adapts to that and makes your body more resilient. But going back to what I was saying is, a lot of you guys think that you're going to gain weight, or there's all these things that are going to happen when you put carbs back into your body. And if it does, then that means something is wrong in the gut microbiome. There's something that is wrong, like, maybe liver, there might be inflammation, a cellular inflammation. There's something wrong if you cannot refeed. And the most common thing I find is the gut microbiome. Like I do find, because when you go low carb, it can, change like the gut microbiome, but it's not a real long-term change. It can, like if you have pathogens that are there, it can allow them to go dormant. They can go into hiding, but when you go and eat good healthy carbs, you're feeding like bacteria overgrowth, you're feeding some of these pathogens. Like I see that happen. And so a lot of people are like, oh, I gained weight 5 pounds from eating fruit. And it's like, well, it's bloating, like it's inflammation and bloating, right? So if you can't do that, you have to realize that like you have to go deeper then. You have to figure out why you can't, because you should be able to diversify your macros. Now, another thought that I want to address is this idea that like, and I've said this in the past, like, oh, well, carbs aren't essential, that technically your body can make glucose. And this is true. Your body can. It can't make essential fatty acids from fat. It cannot make essential amino acids from protein, but it can, for itself, provide glucose for the body. But this is the thing. When you're first going low carb and, doing keto and all of this stuff, you have, especially if there's fat, especially if there's, a lot of stored sugar in the liver, like if you have triglycerides, like you have stuff to pull from, all right? Like you're going to be okay, especially if you're producing ketone bodies. But the problem is that when you go chronically, when you go into a sympathetic state of carb restriction, when you're going too far, right, then your body's going to have to use a backup reservoir like muscle, right? If you're doing it for too long. What I teach and what I've seen long term have the best effects with your hormone is that yes, your body can make glucose, but you don't want it to get to the point where it's breaking down tissue. It doesn't need to, because you are creating this artificial environment of lack of carbs. Okay? Like, yes, your body can do it, but you don't want to do it chronically. And that's where I see so many women, like, if you hear these like horror stories of like women that have done keto or carb, or it's horrible for your thyroid hormones, it's usually women that went far too restrictive for far too long with zero refeeding. And that is going to wreck your body, because we are not in an environment where we need lack of nutrients, especially good nutrients like fruit. Like, come on, guys. Like, it's the summertime, right? So what I teach women is that you don't want to get to that point. And especially for your thyroid, your body, the second your body's like, we're in this sort of famine of nutrients, especially if you're adding on to that, low calories, your body's going to go into survival mode. It's going to shut down that thyroid. It's going to slow down that thyroid. It's going to slow down the signaling to ovaries or adrenals for those that are postmenopause, for sex hormone release. Like, everything is going to go into conservation mode, because you're chronically stressed, because fasting and low carb and keto, those are good stressors. But chronically, a good thing can become a negative thing. So when you find yourself in this kind of weird stage of like binging, or like, I never have issues with this, but like, my gosh, this other day at work, I ate like 2 cupcakes or whatever. There's nothing wrong with it. Your body is aligning with what it needs. And if you're not going to do it, your body's going to have these kind of like, innate intuitive draw to the foods that are going to help it. Now, there's this book that I started reading called Nourishment. I thought it was really, really interesting. But one of the things that I kind of, the beginning of the book talks about, I haven't finished it yet, but it talks about how, they did this major study with children, and they looked at, like, they put out all this food out, like fruits and like good quality ingredients. And what they found is that each child ate differently at each meal according to their body's needs. Like, they all over the years grew and developed fantastic, but as children, we're more connected with our innate, right? We don't have all this like toxic messaging about diets and food and weight and all this stuff. Like, we don't have like, oh, this is good, this is bad. Like, children don't have that. And so what they found is that at each meal, the one meal might be more like fruit heavy, another one might be more fat heavy, but they were drawn to the foods that aligned with their body's needs. And I think that's really interesting, because we've lost that connection of honoring what our body tells us, like being in tune with our body. We're really, even just with technology, we're just bombarded with sound and noise and stimulation and food and food. That's one thing I always hear from women when they start realizing like they are snacking too much, or, they want to do more intermittent fasting, is like, or when they do a block fast, I safely walk women through that, like a longer fast. It's like, I never realized like how much everything revolves around food, like meetings and things, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think community and food going together is one of the most beautiful things in the world. But TV commercial, everything, like, our kids can't go to school without getting like rewarded in Skittles for all these different things, or go to church, right? So a lot of all this noise about food, all this noise about what to do with it, that we've lost this innate ability to like listen to our body and see different things. Like, if you're working out and you're not pushing personal records, and you don't feel like you're putting on muscle, then your body's letting you know there's not enough protein there, right? Do we have enough protein? Do we have enough amino acids? Are we recovering appropriately? Our bodies can tell us that, but we've spent so many years or decades for a lot of you guys just, listening to all the outside noise. And that's one of the things that I work with women over time, is to be more aligned with an intuitive way of eating that, like, yeah, you know what? Around ovulation, you might need more carbs. Like, and if you feel more drawn to that, then prepare for that. Have lots of fruit and paleo cookies. Like, just nourish your body and allow it to refeed when it needs to refeed. There's nothing wrong with you when you feel those, I don't want to say cravings, but you feel those kind of needs, right? Or have those actions. There's nothing wrong with you. That's perfect. Your body's intelligent. And we need to listen to it and honor it, right? And so when it's time to diversify how you eat, there should be no guilt. There should be no fear. No fear. Healing, you can still heal in a different way of eating. You can still heal and lose weight even if you're not low carb. And listen, guys, I know through the years I've been interviewed by lots of people within the keto community, done programs with them, and it is very scary for a lot of you guys that are in that kind of keto community, but you have to understand it's your body that's doing it. And when you give your body good, nourishing ingredients, when you honor your body, when you work on the mental and the spiritual, when you're getting outside, when you're breathing, like when you're doing all these things and treating your body well and listening to your body, you see some incredible, incredible things. And this is coming from someone that has done like cyclical, like keto and low carb for, oh no, I got to calculate it now. How long has it been? We're in 2009, 15 years. Okay. So I'm a fan of it, but I also know that for hormones and especially thyroid hormones, it's really important to refeed. So listen to your body and don't be discouraged if you find yourself being drawn to things. Like stop a moment and be like, okay, so what's going on here? I also feel like that can be really helpful too with adrenal and HPA dysregulation because glucose and cortisol like go like hand in hand. So I find a lot of times when women are hitting a slump or they're grabbing a coffee, soda, snack or something, like midday or after like 3:00, then I'm thinking, oh, I wonder if there's a little crash that's happening there because they had too much cortisol in the morning and now it's coming down and now you need a little something there. Our body is constantly communicating with us. And I think one of the most beautiful things you can do in honoring your body is listening and learning and trusting that over time. Big time. I think that is one of the most powerful things, especially with our current healthcare model, is to trust your gut and trust your body, especially when it comes to thyroid hormones, sex hormones, and being a woman, is that a lot of times we go into it, we're told that it's all in our head or, no, that's not what's going on or whatever. How many times I've heard moms like really advocate for themselves and finally find what was going on. I mean, it happened to me. I had to do it when I was 20. I had to kind of trust my body and trust that even though they said there's nothing wrong with my thyroid hormones, everything that I was feeling was aligned with my thyroid hormones not being optimal, and I was right. So I want you guys to be encouraged with that. Just know that your body is remarkable and that diversifying your nutrients, getting in and out of ketosis is good. It's powerful. And that's what you want, is that metabolic flexibility. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to leave a 5-star review. I love being able to see and read how this information is helping you on your health journey. And make sure to subscribe to the podcast. That way, when new episodes are live, you can have it automatically downloaded to wherever you listen to your podcast. The number one question I get asked is, how do I work with you? If you are interested in finding out more information about me and being a part of my community, go to my website, drrebeccawarren.com. That's dr.rebeccawarren.com. And you should be able to find the answer to your questions there, as well as checking out my Thyroid Inner Circle membership group, getting access to the free Thyroid Labs ebook that I have available for you, and so much more great information.